When generals fight, soldiers die. When parents fight, children suffer. And so this is about working together to find the best way in this moment. They're both generals, and they have to treat each other as such, not talk down to each other, so they have to find another way to lead than the way they've been doing. Because a threat is accumulative if it's not repaired. If you and I don't say, I'm sorry, sweetheart, I shouldn't have done that, that was wrong. If we don't do that on a regular basis, then we start to accrue memory that we deem as threatening. That starts to accumulate and snowball to the point where we have a biological problem where we are no longer allies, you and I, we're adversaries. We're adversaries, and we stop talking, we stop sleeping together, we stop interacting. We don't do good things that couples should do.
Dr. Stan Tatkin, it is such an honor to be able to sit with you in person.
In person with
right.
you, Mark.
I feel like maybe like one of the people in your therapy chair.
I don't use that chair.
Okay, well, different. This is the podcasting chair now.
Right.
I recently read your book, Baby Bum, because this is your second time on the podcast.
Yes.
The first time we chatted about couples, what helps couples be successful. And since Kylie and I have recently had a child, Jasper, he's 7 months old. The title of that book captivated me because I thought, I kind of feel like our relationship has been hit by a bomb. Yeah. Your co-author, Kara Hoppe, she talks about how it's not just bomb in terms of the conversation of like devastating to the relationship, but the multiple meanings, like the bomb. Yes. And I loved that because I thought so much of our relationship is being invited to go to a deeper level, and things that were seemingly, I thought I had my poop in a group, Stan. I thought I had communication like nailed for the most part. And then the universe delivered me Jasper, who now has taught me that my communication ain't so good sometimes.
So how old is your son?
He's 7 months old now.
Oh.
Yeah, and in reading the book, one thing that, because of course having a child and that interrupting or challenging couples is nothing new.
No.
Of course. And you guys talk about some research in there that it really hit me. Some was the Gottman's research that 67% of couples, when they have a baby, their relationship satisfaction plummets. Yeah. And another one was a study from, I believe, 1957 that looked at 83% of couples were in crisis.
Yes.
Oh my Lord, like why is there not more intervention for couples? There's a lot of stuff about relationship, parent to baby, but nothing parent or couple to person.
Yeah, there isn't anything out there that has prepared couples to remain couples because it is a couples project, having a child, right, or children. That's one. The other is that partners don't have a really solid structure, really solid idea of themselves before they have children. And yet another issue is going from 2s to 3s, right? So we have a 2-person system, and that's an exclusive system, just like mother-infant is. And just like mother-infant or father-infant relationships, there is a third person, often the other parent, in this case, the baby. And that third tends to rock the primary system. One person loses their exclusivity with the partner, the primary, and that can lead to jealousy, can lead to feeling left out, unimportant, demoted. And so that's the other thing that we try to prepare people for, is that now you are working together with this third, who is both of your child, but one of you is going to be more preoccupied for a while. One of you is going to be feeding this child more than the other if they're deciding to breastfeed. And there's other things as well. But, there's some interesting studies that men who take time off, paternity leave, and spend a lot of time with their pregnant wives begin to get a syndrome where they have all the symptoms the wife has, and sometimes stronger. food urges, depression, crying jags, preoccupation with the baby that's on its way. And we find that those fathers that have this syndrome do better in fathering. They're better able to bond with the baby at the very beginning because they're bonding with the mother and sort of having these sympathetic symptoms that the mother is having because they're spending so much time together.
Is this where you see that hormonal shift? Like
there is a hormone shift.
The testosterone drops, estrogen increases.
Right. And oxytocin and vasopressin increases as well.
So for the father, there is what's occurring that he's developing a deeper sense of empathy and connection. And what is the benefit of that?
Well, mimicking or starting to have what you have is called affect contagion, or in this case, somatic contagion. And it is a form of empathy. Absolutely. We're resonating. I'm starting to feel what you feel. I'm starting to understand what it might be like to you, for you. And that's always good because it's very hard to empathize with another person who's carrying a child, who's having that experience of their body changing and their brains changing because of hormones and neurotransmitters. Very hard to step into that person's shoes. So this syndrome tends to actually increase empathy and compassion, but also begins to prepare the father for the coming child, which ordinarily fathers are prepared. The mother is experiencing this preparation by having the baby inside of her, right?
Yeah.
So there's a time factor of how much time we spend with each other in general. Partners that spend more time with each other are more likely to influence each other than partners who are beginning to drift or are siloed. And in our culture, men, when there are babies, tend to leave that to the women and to go off to work. And back in the day, when women would get together in clatches, they would raise these babies and these toddlers together. They would have each other to support each other. They would have each other to talk to. They would help each other manage each child. And so we don't have that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The average couple is isolated, many times isolated from their families of origin. They're too far away, or maybe they're not in speaking terms. There isn't a network of other families to be together so that it keeps the parents company and they have adults to talk to. We're more and more isolated, and at a time when it's really needed, that support, emotional support, resourcing for the mother and the father, it's least available to us. And so that's yet another problem facing our culture.
Other than what sounds like really the absence of village,
yes.
Which really doesn't, one person cannot caretake everyone's needs, and to have all this support from other women, other men, aunts and uncles that are not maybe blood, but also blood. Is there other things in this modern world? Because this world is so different than the world we're alluding to, that we're sort of biologically prepared for.
Right.
Like, how do things like social media impact this? And
it's a great question.
Gosh, so many things.
It's a great question. The problem with social media isn't what we think. Like kids will adapt if during the critical periods of development, if they got what they needed, they'll adapt to new technology like everybody else. It's not going to ruin them. But we do worry about parents that are preoccupied with their phones, with their screens, and this during the period of birth and 18 months. It's a very critical time when brain regions are being set up, systems are being set up, and requires a lot of face-to-face, skin-to-skin, eye-to-eye interaction that's continuous. So the more distracted parents are with their devices, this is where I fear could cause a problem later on down the line, starting at 8, actually, but then also reemerging at pre-adolescence and adolescence proper. So that's the part I worry about. Not that technology is going to ruin kids, but that kids are possibly not getting what they need in terms of face time, skin time, attention by their parents who are constantly being distracted. That's a problem.
Yeah, I noticed that with my screen time since having Jasper has gone way down.
Yeah.
And part of that is this awareness that I have that when he's looking at me, I need to be looking at him.
Yes.
And if I will check my phone if there's something I absolutely need to attend to. But what I've noticed is the pull, this like addictive pull to be like, oh, what's happening over there? And I'm curious, when you talk about it coming back at age 8 or in early adolescence, what does that look like if a parent is not attuned? If a parent is, let's say, cruising Instagram while their baby's like, hello, I'm over here. You were saying that that's where you might see the concerns in those later ages.
There are a lot of things that are happening during infancy in the first few years. Like I said, the right hemisphere is being set up. Regulatory systems are being set up, the autoimmune system, the autonomic nervous system, all of these systems, including the neuroendocrine stress system, all being set up during this time. And there are these windows of opportunity where brain areas that specialize in certain things like reading faces, reading interoceptive cues, being able to build a lexicon of facial expressions. All of these are happening at this time, and then nature moves on to other development. And so there is a real deficit that can occur, not to mention that we know that the more people that are involved in parenting, to the other point, it takes a village. The more people involved, the better for the baby, because these people are stimulants, right? They're objects that enable brain cells to be active and not get pruned in infancy because of non-activity. They create much more sympathetic, parasympathetic neurons in particularly the front area, which is necessary for being a well-regulated human being. So the more the merrier, but the contact. Otherwise, what happens is that, and this is the worst case scenario, in the first year of life, there is an event that is normal called apoptosis, where the brain cells literally commit suicide because they're not used, right? They're not used. And that's a pruning to make the brain leaner and meaner and more efficient, right? To get rid of things that aren't needed. In some cases of neglect, which most of your audience doesn't do, we're talking about the Romanian babies that were studied that were terribly neglected. There's, permanent damage there. So this matter of stimulation, which is basically a person, not a TV, not a screen, not a mobile, but a face, a body, is really essential for building a human being from the very beginning. And that process continues to build on itself as time and development moves on. So we want to start well.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So much of the focus of the conversation during the holiday season is about family, interacting with family, how do we be around them, what type of gift should we get a person, etc. But the conversation isn't often about us, about what we need and what would be a great gift to gift ourselves during the holiday season. Now, a great gift that will pay dividends in every area of our life, but especially our relationships, is the gift of introspection. And what can help on the adventure to self-awareness is things like therapy, or just easing up her schedule so that we have a little more time to consider ourselves, right? To actually be with ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings. Because so often in a culture that is focused on other, there is such an absence of being present with ourselves and really thinking about what we need. Now, for me, getting support by talking to a therapist has always been so helpful, especially when I felt alone or like no one else could understand, or the people who were around me were my friends or my family, and I wanted actually an independent, objective person to be able to hear what I was going through so that I could get good advice to move through whatever I was going through. Now, it's helped me become a much better person. It's helped me to have someone to reflect thoughts and feelings with and to navigate tough situations and, of course, seasons like the holidays. Therapy has allowed me to be more present and to experience less anxiety as I head into holiday seasons, because I know that I have access to someone to talk to and what boundaries I need as I navigate different life events. If therapy sounds like something that could be good for you too, give BetterHelp a try. You can make it easily work with your schedule, and it's a quick way to get relief even if you're busy. All you do is fill out a quick questionnaire and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist. And don't worry, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/grows today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/grows.
When a child is not witnessing their parents interact, or parents interacting with their phone and not them, is it actually doesn't allow them to develop empathy, the child, right? Because mirroring, don't they develop empathy through the observation of facial expression?
Empathy comes on later. It's a different system. It's combined. It's a network, right? It's a network that is both vertical in the brain, vertical, horizontal, diagonal. And so empathy comes later in development with the full awareness of another person. And that is kind of like mitosis,
Okay.
Imagine cells that are dividing. First, there's a single cell. Mother, baby are one. There is no separation, right? And that cell divides, and then it divides again into fours, and then it divides again, and so on. So with each period of development, the baby is taking on more and more in its environment and beginning to differentiate between itself, starting with the body.
Like I am a self.
Right.
There's
So,
another.
right.
Yeah.
My body, not my body. Me, not me later, right? Me, not me later. And so there's this process of sorting all the objects that are external to the baby. First, they're not external, they're one. But then they become external and become identified. And that's a process that goes on through life,
Yeah.
right? I begin to just see you as a breast, or I see your feet, or I just see, your eyes. I don't see you as a whole person yet. But then I start to. Then I start to, because I'm expanding my vision.
So we know how, this modern world, there's obviously a lot of distractions, a lot of things.
Oh my God.
And we're talking about the impact on baby. I'm curious, what is the impact on a couple with the way that all the things that we have in the world that weren't around 100 years ago, 30 years ago?
Well, one thing, I think we've become more ADHD, right? We're distracted. Our tolerance for long form books, stories is degraded.
Mm-hmm.
We want everything now. We're used to looking like, the dog Doug in Up, squirrel.
Yeah.
We're constantly doing squirrel. And so there's that. Part of that is a sort of an RPM issue, clock issue. Actually, a dopamine issue is that I'm constantly finding ways to get a dopamine dump by looking for something new, right? And phones and devices, technology is constantly serving that up to us, which the brain loves. Brain loves two things: novelty and moving objects, of which these devices offer us. And so then we want to talk to someone, we want to text somebody, oh, the baby just did this, the baby just did that, right? We're taking pictures of the baby or taking pictures of each other. But there's other problems other than the attention issue, right? And attention is a big issue, like being able to hang out with somebody without doing anything.
Yeah.
We get bored right away. We get the niche. We got to be doing something. That's a problem. But then also, modern times, we don't have the same assisting. We don't have someone to help us at night. One of the main problems is not, parents getting no sleep because there's nobody to help at nighttime so they can get some sleep. They're under-resourced in terms of finances. That's going to be bad for them. They are under-resourced because they don't know how to be boyfriend and girlfriend, or girlfriend and girlfriend, or boyfriend and boyfriend. That they are the center, should be, of the universe. They're the creators of their relationship, and they happen to be the creators of this new being. Therefore, they can't lose their coupledom. Otherwise, they will begin to drift eventually, and that won't work for the baby. It won't work for the children, and that certainly won't work for them. So we want them to remain in courtship, with each other in whatever way that means to them, and that they are resourcing each other. And again, I think it's important that fathers take their paternal leaves, and they're there also at that time and not left out, because this is a time to support the primary. So the primary is supporting the baby, right? Look at it as the regulating, who's regulating the baby? Well, let's say it's the mother figure. It could be the father figure. This is true, by the way, of same-sex relationships. Doesn't matter. The other parent, what do? Well, they could bond with the baby, but they will not likely be the primary. Primary is the one that spends the most time, has the most tentacles, roots.
That's Kylie for sure.
Yeah,
with us.
The one who carried that baby. The baby was acclimated to the sound right away, and is being fed. So let's say that primary needs to be regulated. The other caregiver, the other parent, the other partner regulates that person. So
you support the primary.
I support my wife as she's dealing intensely with the baby, because that intensity we know is a necessary condition for that development that is occurring so early in the baby's life to happen, right? Mother has to be regulated, otherwise she won't have the resources to do her job, and that comes from the outside, and that could easily be the other partner, right? So that's, in this sense, there's sort of a chain of care.
Yeah, when you go from this 2 to 3, and I'd like to explore, because in my experience, I was cognizant of feeling like, hey, Mom and Kylie and Jasper have this constant bond, touch, everything. And I'm like, hey, and I was conscious of that. I brought that forward that, hey, I'm just processing what it feels like to not get I get cuddles from them, but it's very...
Yes.
I'm like, is there leftover cuddles?
It's very exclusive.
So what does the shift from 2 to 3 actually look like, especially if it's done well?
If it's done well, partners are signaling to each other that they still remain as primaries, right? They're still primaries. And that solves the mismanagement of thirds problem. Mismanagement of thirds is where one partner has a particular relationship with a thing, an activity, a person, to the exclusion of the other. That breeds jealousy. Jealousy is, I have something that is threatening to be taken away from me, right? That's jealousy. Whereas envy is, you have something I want. I already have something, and now it's threatening. The baby is threatening what I have. My exclusive relationship with my partner. Hey, dude. So I've got to understand that, and my partner has to understand that and mitigate it. In other words, make sure that we're in good order and that I'm not being replaced and that I have a seat at this table as co-parent, right? So that's already thought about ahead of time. The agreements are there. And then, of course, permission to enforce those agreements that will ensure you and I stay a couple, right, during all this.
What does that positive signaling look like for a couple?
It could be, I love you. You're my person. Look what we did. You're such a good parent. I can't wait to be with you tonight. Right? This is ours. Or it can also be the non-primary parent understanding what it feels like to be the primary. I bet you don't feel like being touched right now. You're being touched by everybody, pushed and pulled. Let's say we do something and you can just be there. We won't have to do anything. We don't have to touch, right? It's called overtouch. I bet this must be feeling all sorts of ways postpartum. I understand it. I've been reading on it. And so I'm able to take care of you while you're taking care of baby, right? Because we all need you to be okay. So we're doing things that include each other, that suggest that this is our creation. And our creation came out of our creation of what this union we have with this alliance we have means and why we are doing it. We're not just doing it because we love each other, because love comes and goes. We're doing it for a higher purpose. Maybe it is we have each other's backs at all times. We are survivalists. We're going to survive. We're going to thrive together. We're going to do things where it's us against the world. We're going to please each other, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? But we have a sense of purpose and a sense of vision of where we're going. It's not just for baby, because baby and children in general are just passing through. They're going to be gone. It's still us. So anything that just protects that primary attachment system between the lovers, it has to be an experience that both partners are responsible for, so they don't drop each other. They don't drop each other. And this will solve all of those problems and more that are coming that involve thirds, by the way.
Yeah, because with Kylie and I was cognizant of this shift, that we would go from a 2 to 3. I was not I knew emotions would come. I wasn't necessarily prepared or understood how to hold them yet.
Yes.
But I would bring it forward into our relationship. Like, hey, I'm feeling kind of like I'm this third person over here. But when I read Baby Bomb, it made me so much more intentional about these conversations and bringing forward that we're a team.
Yes.
And we're talking about what makes these couples successful. Like, how do you maintain the 2 with the 3? So we just talked about how it goes well. What happens if it doesn't go well? What does that look like?
Well, that's why we wrote the book. Can I back up 1 second and answer that question? So I have been interested in prevention for many years, and I tried to study. I did study babies, and I studied babies and their caregivers, and then I wanted to do early prevention and have those caregivers come in studio in my clinic, where I would videotape them, as I do with couples, and then I would help that bonding situation. I would help whatever was beginning to go off track a little bit between parent and baby. Unfortunately, we don't live in a culture that is into prevention very much, and I couldn't get an audience. I couldn't get a population here. So that's why I switched to couples, one of the reasons. So I can help children by shoring up the couple relationship. If the couple is in good shape, baby will be much better off than if they're not. So one of the crises would be that, oh my God, where do we start? One person didn't want the baby and felt that they had to do it in order to keep the relationship.
Oh.
Bad. That's bad for everybody, should not happen. I wish people would not do that. I understand why they do, but I wish they wouldn't. Or we just thought we could do this. It couldn't be that hard. Everybody's been doing it since the beginning of the species, and they don't prepare. They don't prepare for what is to come. They don't think about what could possibly go wrong. Right? They don't think about downstream effects, and they certainly don't think about their relationship. What will this do? Right? Then there are people who have babies because their relationship is in trouble. That's an old trope, right?
Yeah.
Bad reason to have it. No, it doesn't shore up your marriage. It may give you something to do that takes your mind off of the partner you don't want to be with. But that's, again, not good for each other and not good for the children. Other crises, financial crises, parents dying. And this is weirdly, oddly common. A parent or a grandparent dies just when the baby is born.
Wow.
Right? And so there are losses that weren't expected, and then that's adding another piece of load bearing on the couple. Someone loses their job. There's not enough. They didn't plan ahead to have support, and they didn't realize what it would feel like, and now they're fighting about it. Or the primary caregiver realizes they hate being home alone this much. They're itching for an adult conversation. They need to get back to work. They feel like they've made a mistake, right? They love this baby, but they also didn't count on what it would feel like in real time without the support, where these are just some of the many crises. And then, of course, something's wrong with baby. Not all babies are equal, and many times there are problems. GERD, that's, diagnosable, but nobody knows what it is when the baby is crying
the reflux.
Constantly. Or any number of things that are going on internally that is causing the baby pain. then is also causing the caregiver's pain because they can't comfort the baby. We tend to not like that which we can't manage, right?
Makes sense.
It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. Baby's colicky, has GERD. I can't settle the baby. I start to not like the baby. And that's where intervention really must come in, right? So these are the kind of crises that will sort of make everything harder. And there are many more that I could think of.
So what would be some symptoms of a relationship that is in crisis because they don't have this bedrock of coupledom?
Here's the thing. If partners do not predict, plan, and prepare for what could possibly go wrong, then they walk into a situation where they are unprepared and they're going to do whatever they need to do to protect themselves from each other. This is human nature, right? So unless they are prepared and they set up already the parameters of what we're going to do if then, right? And how are we going to govern each other by permission, right? Do I have permission to stop you if you do this? Yes, you do. Okay, great. Do I have permission to push you if you don't do this? Yes, you do. Okay, that's how we would govern. But let's say the average couple who does not have this, right? Did not think about it. They're going to, with this third, make a ton of errors in communication, with memory, with perception, and they are going to, if under stress, going to use pattern recognition to determine whether the other is a threat to them. This is not a very fancy thing. This is what we all do. We don't have that much energy to constantly think critically. So we use cheap memory pattern recognition. It looks like you're getting in my way, therefore you are. It looks like you don't understand me, therefore you don't. Or it seems like you just said something unkind to me, criticizing me, therefore you did. And that starts a war, right? It starts light, but because threat is accumulative if it's not repaired. If you and I don't say, I'm sorry, sweetheart, I shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. If we don't do that on a regular basis, then we start to accrue memory that we deem as threatening. That starts to accumulate and snowball to the point where we have a biological problem where we are no longer allies, you and I. We're adversaries. We're adversaries, and we stop talking. We stop sleeping together. We stop interacting. We don't do good things that couples should do. We stick to our lanes. We start to go off into different directions. These are the problems that we're trying to avoid that can start seemingly benignly. But if not dealt with quickly, this snowballs, and it's a cascade actually towards dissolution.
In the book, you talk about practices that couples can do in order to find success and create a good connection, maybe once again.
Yes.
And you referred to co-regulating practices. So maybe could you speak to what that might look like, improving communication?
Sure. So when I say co-regulation, I'm talking about states, right? We could think of them as emotions. Emotions are wrapped up in states, right? I'm in a certain state of mind that includes sadness and anger. I'm in a certain state of mind where my heart rate is going so high I can barely sit still. My state is such that my heart rate and blood pressure has dropped to the point where I can hardly think or talk, right? These are states of mind and body, and they govern us, right? Our state of mind triggers memory. Memory triggers state of mind. And state of mind alters perception like a funhouse mirror. This is how we're dealing with each other all the time on this slippery ground.
Yeah.
So you and I have to be really good at managing each other's state. Now, unfortunately, we come from a culture that is wrong about this. You should regulate yourself, take care of yourself, go to therapy. You do your thing, I'll do my thing, right? And that is actually false in terms of how we are wired as human primates. It is much more efficient for me to regulate you and you to regulate me in real time than it is for me to think about what I am feeling at the moment. Therefore, I can see it in your face. if I'm looking at you, I can tell if you are starting to climb sympathetically to a place where anger resides, terror resides, fear resides, but also, horniness and delight and joy, right? And terror, right? But I'm keeping tabs on that because I want to be able to influence you. I want to be able to have an audience, right? And if you feel unsafe with me or insecure with me at any time, I am no longer able to influence you. Therefore, I have a job. A job is to return you to safety, return you to security in any means possible, usually the quickest route, with an expression, with a touch, with a saying, did I do that thing again? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Or to say, I promise you, you will not lose. I will make sure you don't lose. I won't lose, you won't lose, right? I think of you and consider you at the same time I'm considering myself, which keeps you calm, which keeps you in the saddle, so to speak. And now I'm able to influence you and you me. But as soon as you start to get tipped over, either going up in your heart rate's climbing, blood pressure's climbing, or you're dropping, which is a little more concerning for us humans. I must do something right away, or I've lost my partner, I've lost my audience. Think of it as we're on a tight wire, you and I. And on that tight wire, we have to watch each other like hawks because we're looking for signs that the other person is starting to lose confidence or it's starting to wobble a little bit. We have to do something to keep ourselves straight. Otherwise, we both fall. That's the game. So you and I are talking about something difficult and one of us is under stress. That's really when we slow things down, keep eyes on each other, and make sure we're both okay at every point, or game over, we walk away with nothing. So co-regulation is basically done autonomically unless and until one of us is under stress, and then we start to revert to a one-person system of I, me, mine, and you, where we're adversarial. Everyone will do this. Everyone, there are no exceptions. This is a human problem. And unless we know better, we're going to step into a threat system whereby you have gotten no sign from me that I care the least about what you're worried about, what you want. That then puts you in a position to have to do that yourself. And now we're congealed and we're bumping up against each other. That is so much a part of our condition that we see it everywhere. We see it everywhere. I start to confuse you as the enemy. You're not. But I feel that I'm being threatened. My interests are being threatened. My trust in you is threatened, right? All of these things make us very primitive. It's a real primal experience that we have with our survival instinct. It doesn't care about who is threatening us, what is threatening us. I shoot first, ask questions later. And so co-regulation is the ability for us to be masters at each other. If you start to get upset, I know how to calm you. If you get depressed, I know how to raise you up. If you start to get anxious, I know how to soothe you. You know how to do that with me. I know you. I know the animal I chose. I know how to talk to you, how to start a conversation, how to get you to land on your feet. I know how to work you without using a stick or a whip. That's competence. That's competence. That, in a way, we're each other's first children. I have to be competent parenting you and you me in order to be a really good parent with this little kid who's going to be easier than us.
In a relationship, is there one person that tends to do that more than the other? And are they supposed to take turns? Like, is that an agreement people should make?
They are a co-regulatory team. If we were studying them, really studying them, we would see they are a co-regulatory team. Now, when we start to interview them, we may find that one person does the main bulk of the regulation for the system. We call that person the master regulator. And the way we know this, if the master regulator were to catch cold or to fall ill for some reason, there's a problem in the system, in that marital system, couple system. If the non-master regulator gets sick, nothing happens, right? So you start to know that there's someone who's carrying the bulk of this. I'd say for me, that's my wife. My wife is the master regulator.
She's like Yoda.
Right.
Damn.
Well, I think I'm a more difficult, nervous person than she is, and she's much more calm and competent.
Yeah.
But so that's normal. That's not a problem, and usually people don't complain about that. People will complain when somebody is drawing resources to themselves from their partner without ever returning it. That's codependency. Right?
Yeah.
It's in one direction only, and that will be unfair, and that will breed resentment. But there are instances when you go down, you're not able to do anything.
Yeah.
I have the medicine. Therefore, as my partner in crime, the person who I'm in the foxhole with, I must help you. Otherwise, I'm screwed too, because I depend on you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do everything in my power to right you because I can and you can't. You're going to do that for me when I can't, and you can. This way, we're that team
we're
that
dancing.
If you go down, I'm going to be there. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to dump you. I'm not going to make it worse. I know you. I'm going to help you out, and then we're going to get back to work. Right?
How does a baby impact that system?
Well, baby is needing constantly, right? Baby is nonverbal and is using nonverbal means to attract the primary caregiver. This is what Winnicott called the maternal primary preoccupation. It's a kind of intuition, ESP that the primary has with the baby. I can feel the baby needs me right now.
Mm-hmm.
That could be intrusive, right? That could get in the way of the time that we're together, right? Because I'm always aware of that baby. The baby's survival depends on me, and we're really connected in some very strange ways that are hard to prove, but we know it exists.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel the baby needs me right now, right? And so that's a good thing. That could get in the way. I think the problems with children happen later on when the children are going through crises that affect the parents. Like in the first few years where the child is practicing, mobilized, and is crawling away or now walking away from the parents, they worry the child is going to run into reality harshly because the child isn't aware of that. And so there's always eyes on the child. Where are they? What are they getting into? And so on. But then even more when the child gets to a phase of ambivalence where I need your help, I don't want your help. I need your help. You're great. You're the smart person. No, you're a disappointment. You can't do this. For the first time, I realize you're incompetent, and now I'm mad at you because I don't have help, right? And that's a very tough period, both for the child and on the parents if they don't know what's coming, right? And if their relationship isn't good. And that's going to happen a lot as children buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
I'm really excited to share with you one of my new favorite brands, which is called SafeSleeve. I discovered them because I was looking for a phone case that would prevent radiation, because of course I use my phone for work, and my phone sits in my pocket right next to all the, important bits. And I couldn't be happier with this product. I absolutely love it. And recently, France actually banned the iPhone 12 for excessive radiation levels. So this is the perfect time for me to share this with you and for you to go check them out. SafeSleeve makes anti-radiation products designed to give you peace of mind so that you can know that you and your devices are protected. And all of their anti-radiation products incorporate lab-tested shielding technology that can block over 99% of radio frequency radiation and 92% of electromagnetic field radiation. There are very few anti-radiation brands that offer lab-tested protection and make it publicly available on their website, and only a couple of them block ELF, the electromagnetic field radiation, which is much harder to block but equally as important. And as a bonus, their phone cases provide military-grade drop protection, which is also tested for. So if you're like me and you want to protect yourselves from getting fried by RF, check out SafeSleeve's phone cases, anti-radiation headphones, RF blocking blanket, and more awesome products that keep you safe. Go to safesleevecases.com and use the code GROVES10 for 10% off at checkout.
In the book, you talk about this concept of fighting for two winners.
Yes.
I loved it. As soon as I read it, I was like, oh, that to make that the intention of every dialogue, every conflict, that we are a team and we come back together. So what does fighting for two winners sound like? And what is it in practice?
It means that neither of us can lose. Otherwise, we both lose. And what is that based on? If we were a three-legged race, which I believe couples are, our inner legs are tied, we would learn rapidly that we're independent, autonomous adults with free will, but we're tied together. So we have to move together or we don't move. We have to be cooperative and collaborative or we get nothing done. We can't go to the bathroom together. We can't do any of this stuff, right? So it's based on the idea of interdependence. You and I have the same things to gain and the same things to lose. There's nothing I can do to you that won't come back to me in the same form, right? There is no thing that is unfair that will not affect me because you'll resent me and I'll pay for it. Therefore, I cannot afford for you to lose and for me to win because that causes definite downstream bad effects for me, selfishly. So it's the idea of win-win because we're moving together as two separate individuals, two people who are different, two annoying, pain in the asses, burdens, disappointing human primates. But we know how to work together and we know how to make sure it's good for me and good for you, or the factory stops. We stop doing anything. We basically start to go to war. And it's stupid to have a war in your own foxhole, right?
Right.
So we can't afford to do that. Therefore, I have to think of you and consider you at the same time I'm considering myself, or you'll confuse me as an adversary. That's how this works.
Fighting for two winners sounds really great in theory. I'm curious if parents have different opinions on parenting styles, different opinions on just how a kid should be managed when they do something quote unquote wrong.
Of course.
It seems like that would be really hard to manage. What would be the fallout of having two different parenting styles?
Gee, what could possibly go wrong?
Right.
Okay, that is a fact. There's going to be two different parenting styles. That's a feature, not a bug, right? We know that children do better with two different parents, maybe 3 or 4 different parents. It's even better because that is more learning for the child in terms of different styles, different people, different ways of talking, different ways of doing everything, right? Now, if you and I picked each other, right? We picked each other based on recognition and familiarity. We should have, before having a child, we should have co-created our culture, our relationship ethics, what we're going to do, what we're never going to do. So say us both, right? We already have an idea of our beliefs and how we're going to deal with each other. That's one. 2, I would ask parents, let's start here. Do you both have the same purpose as parents? Let's say the purpose is to be the best parent you can be. Do you both agree? Uniformly, so far, no one said no. Yes, we both want to be the best parents we can be. Good. You agree. Now let's talk about vision for your children, right? This is about what you want the end point to be. Do you both want your children to be happy and healthy? They're both going to say yes. Do you want your children to be good citizens in the world? They're going to say yes. Do you want your children to be resilient and not give up easily? Yes. Do you want your children to respect others and respect their things and to be organized and tidy? Yes. Right. So I'm going to go down the line. I could do more, but I could say, so far, the two of you agree on everything. The only thing you're not going to agree on is how to accomplish these things. That's not a problem because neither of you are experts. There is no expert here. There is no book that can say how to parent this particular child, right? All children are different. It's an improv. It is the two of you being able to work together as a team, always and forever, trying to find the best thing we could do at this pivot point, and then come back and see how well it was and whether we achieved it, and then redesign. That's what parenting is. It's a constant moving target. Depends on the two of you being collaborative and cooperative. That means you got to work together as two different people, right? Now, if you really think this parent should not be parenting, then you should call Child Protective Services if you think they're doing harm. Are they doing harm? No, I don't mean that. Okay. Then stop it. Because you're both going to try to get to the same place differently, and that's not a bad thing. It's not. You do not protect your children from each other. That's the start of a horrible marriage, and your kids are going to hate you for it.
Does that demonstrate, when that exists, is that a demonstration that we maybe lack openness to influence from our partner?
Yes, because they're already in trouble at this point, right? You might think, oh, we didn't expect this to happen, but anybody who witnessed and followed this couple's trajectory would know that, of course, this would happen because they're ill prepared as a team, right? And so that's, again, the reason for a baby bomb or anything that prepares parents for what is to come, like blended families, like anything, right? So this is teamwork. This is not about, this is how my family raised us. So therefore we have to raise this child the way my family did. No, your families are no longer the issue here. They're deposed. You two are the leaders, are the creators, are the big bosses. You're in charge of this thing, and you're supposed to create it yourselves as something entirely different, not your parents. That's what most of us do because we're lazy. We're energy conserved, which is why we never look at ourselves. We don't have time or care, right? The only time we do is when we're suffering. I'd rather you learn this without having to suffer.
Yeah.
That this is your creation. It's unique, and it's constantly being modified by the two of you according to what you both want, period.
Stan, do you think that we tend to parent our children unconsciously the way we were parented, like just repeating what is familiar, even though we have this opportunity to create a customized parenting machine for our kid?
Absolutely. Nature repeats itself. It's not only parenting that we repeat everything. We are made up of memory. We are behaving according to memory most of the time. Thinking critically takes up too much energy. It's energy expending. We, like other creatures in biology, are energy conserving. We do the least amount necessary, so we have reserves for actually having to do something we have to think about. So, yes, we are going to repeat ourselves. That's natural. It's not personal. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. But it is something that we can work against to a degree. When generals fight, soldiers die. When parents fight, children suffer. And so this is about working together to find the best way in this moment, even if it's temporary, for now, right? That's the spirit of this. They're both generals, and they have to treat each other as such, not talk down to each other, so they have to find another way to lead than the way they've been doing.
So I just want to pivot because this subject I know is a hot one that comes up for all new parents, but not even just new parents.
Oh God, it's got to be sex.
It's sex. That is the subject I want to confront. And other than things like healing that is required for the mother, there's also the absence of time, like time alone that you can spend and have that intimacy. What are some reasons that sex declines, and what are some ways that we can rekindle it?
So, sex declines throughout the lifespan for a lot of different reasons. Most of them are biological. Some of them are psychobiological. After the birth of a child, there is a need for the non-caring partner, the one who didn't carry, to really understand what that would feel like and how long it takes, perhaps, depending on how much the body was messed with, how long it takes for that to heal, because the body may have been invaded if it's a C-section. There's a lot of things that happen psychologically as well. Then there are hormones, postpartum. Depression, anxiety. There is also the hyper-focus on the baby. I've fallen in love with my baby, right? Which is a necessary condition. And then there is overtouch. I'm breastfeeding. I'm being pulled at. I'm tired of being pulled at. I don't want to be pulled at. Leave me alone. Then there is usually, if it's a male who's the other partner, classically insensitive to all of these things and will not spend time imagining what it might be like to be in their partner's body. Mm-hmm. I hear this quite a bit, and they also, part of thirds, if they're feeling threatened, suddenly they want a lot of sex. Maybe it's to consolidate their place with their female partner. Who knows? But everyone has different sense of libido. Here's another thing that women talk about. I hate my body post-pregnancy. I don't like my boobs. I don't like my butt. I don't like my stomach. I don't like my thighs. There is a hit to one's self-esteem based on appearance. And I think all women would probably hit that and have that feeling. Some who are more vain, perhaps, care more about youth and beauty. This could be really devastating for them. And I don't feel attracted or attractive. I don't want to do that. But much of the time, it's reacting to an expectation and a demand by the other partner who is insensitive, ill-timed, and wants something for themselves. Message received by the female partner, this is for you, not for me. I think you can F off. As far as rekindling intimacy, first, partners have to understand what intimacy is. And we exist in a culture that really is kind of messed up with all these messages about sex. The real truth is that sex changes over time no matter what, because we're moving through time, we're changing constantly. To expect that sex should be as it was prior to the birth of a child or when we first met is not only naive, it's impossible. So we make love, we're intimate for the time we are in, period. We don't try to reach back and replicate something because that ship sailed. Therefore, intimacy is for the moment. It includes presence and attention. Presence and attention. Not automation, not expectation, not demand, and it certainly shouldn't be performative because that kills the intimacy. Intimacy, lovemaking can be having intercourse, but not necessarily. Could be having oral sex, but not necessarily. It could be pillow talk. It could be the thing we used to do when we went out on sleepovers or camping out. We could talk all night about what we don't know about each other. That's kind of fun. We could explore each other's bodies and look for, like most primates do, anything wrong. We could gaze into each other's eyes and ask each other questions. There is a ton of things we can do, but all of it is predicated on presence and attention. Presence and attention. And then, like child rearing, it's improv. Most people don't do that. Most people don't improvise. Most people want to do what's in their head or want to repeat what they've done before. And that leads to boredom, and sometimes it leads to the other person feeling like an object, like you're not really seeing me. You're playing something out in your head. So this is something about maturity. This is about knowing and understanding what real intimacy and lovemaking is. Sometimes it's about penetrative sex. Sometimes it's about orgasms. Sometimes it's about getting to know you, getting to know all about you, and everything in between. So again, this is about growing up. This is about accepting and grieving losses. We're losing from the minute we're born. We're constantly losing things. we're gaining things, but we're losing things, and we are supposed to grieve those losses, not tantrum that they shouldn't be gone. We should still have it, and that keeps us from moving forward. That keeps us from being where we are.
Well, I'm sure for people listening, that is good news, that they can get intimacy back, and not just back, but perhaps deeper than they've ever had it, that they get to know each other as a couple so much better. Because for Kylie and I, and from my experience, is that having Jasper has, one, shown me where I actually wasn't as clean in my communication as I could be, and where there was still little tender pieces of me coming up, feeling left out, that kind of stuff. And in reading your book, immediately that day when I was finishing it, I was bringing forward a lot of the stuff I was reading to Kylie and what I was learning and what I missed about us, and really coming back as a team. Like, there was a couple moments in the book where I got emotional and I like shed a tear in the way that conflict was handled, that I was like, I'm getting emotional now. That I just felt like, oh, this is reminding me of how important this work is.
Yes.
And how beautiful an opportunity it is for Kylie and I to become even better. And it was easy to forget about being a team when we were overwhelmed and there was so much going on. But now I feel like through this book, through conversations with you, I feel like there's a way through this, that there's like not just a way through, but we're going to be better than we ever have.
Yes.
And I think what I love so much about your work and the way that you orient to relationship is that everything is an opportunity to be a better couple. And so much of the work we haven't done prior to the child, because it might be the first time we're like, agreements, what? And so thank you so much for the way that you look at love and relationship and couples, because you have and continue to give us tools to actually build a solid us, and also through an us, create really amazing kids and humans and adults.
I adore you, Mark. I really do. You're a good person, and I love what you do as well.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I'm so grateful to have you back on. We were already scheming a third time before we hit record, so I'm excited to have you back on again. For people listening, where can they find more about the PACT Institute, as well as I know you have retreats that couples can go on, and also where your books?
Well, I started off as a professor, I still am, teaching therapists how to do my approach. So go to the pactinstitute.com. That's the PACT institute.com. If you are in mental health and you want to be trained, we do training all over the world. And if you are a couple or both, we do couple retreats, or actually couple workshops constantly online, both Tracey and I. And we have one coming up, a sort of a 5-star retreat coming up in next year in Porto, Portugal. And that is always amazing, always amazing. So you can find all that information there.
Perfect. And your books, anywhere, books?
Books anywhere. And I would direct people to the latest book, In Each Other's Care, because I think heretofore that is the clearest I think I've become with regard to how to fight well and how to structure your relationship properly.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Stan. Really appreciate you.